Concept of region is a topic that is central to that of whole of geographical thinking. And when we're going to say it is central to that of geographical thinking, it basically means that region, the concept of region is the one that forms the basic philosophy of geography. That's one part. Second is geography is closely identified with this topic as its philosophical aspect. The third is that this part is also significant from the perspective of regional planning, because one cannot go on to plan a region, one cannot never go on to plan a region unless one happens to know about the region and the concept of the region. There is going to be another aspect associated with it. Of course, there are going to be two aspects therefore. The first is associated with its philosophical component. By philosophical component, we go on to mean there is one of those type of a component that goes on to determine who said what about the region. And that goes on to include what exactly is it that the geographers said about the region. That is beginning with Kant, Strabo, Verenius, then Humboldt, Ritter, of course not Humboldt, but Ritter, and then Ferdinand von Richthofen, and so on and so forth. Now, this segment of it is going to be studied as part of perspectives in geography. This is one segment that is studied as part of perspectives in geography. And students are most comfortable studying these things there itself, in perspective only. That is one part. Now, we are not going to be picking up that component here because that is going to be already there. The second is going to be associated with some of its basic philosophy that allows it to be understood in a somewhat better manner. And then its characteristics, of course, that is what we're going to be talking about, its attributes. We are talking about its attributes, that is criteria, categories, and its characteristics. And of course, that is going to be the D part is going to be compage as well. This is going to be compage. How is it that we're going to see the overall whole of the region? That goes on to be a component of it. Now, beginning with its definition, beginning with what exactly a region goes on to be. Now, from a perspective of definition, a region is said to be a selected region is a area that is defined on the basis of a selected criteria. A region is a homogeneous area in relation to a selected criteria. Now listen to that. A homogeneous area. There's an area and in relation to a selected criteria. Any criteria that you're going to choose, and with that, on that respect, on that count, if there is going to be a broad amount of a homogeneity, then as far as this homogeneity goes on to get spread out, that is a region. Let's take one criteria. That criteria can go on to be, that criteria is going to be associated with climate, to make it simple of sorts. That is, we're going to be talking about a humid climate, and we're going to be talking about a mountain humid climate. Now, the mountain humid climate goes on to begin from somewhere from this place here, and then it goes on to be all along this entire of the region. Now, beyond that region, it can go on to be a plain, not mountain. And that is going to be humid because there are going to be a lot of lakes. That means from here to here, there is going to be a lot of homogeneity with respect to the region. So that will go on to form a complete region. As we go on to say, what is the criteria that we have selected here? That is homogeneity. And it is that is going to be humidity. And that is homogeneous throughout. Supposing that we are going to be selecting a criteria that is a Konkani speaking people. And if you're going to pick up this criteria, then we're going to find that all along the west coast, that is going to be a narrow zone along which these people are going to be found. That is, beyond that, it can go on to be Marathi, beyond that, it can go on to be Karnataka, beyond that, it can go on to be Goanese, beyond that, it can be anyone. But within this zone is what is going to be one homogeneous characteristic, and that is going to be in terms of language. So a region is a homogeneous area in relation to a selected criteria. Consequently, a region is a intellectual concept. We're going to say that is the basic plank of it is that it is going to be an intellectual concept. It is not an object. Now imagine it is not an object. It is not that it actually exists on the surface, and thus we don't going to say that it's an object. It's an intellectual concept. That means any criteria that we're going to choose, and if there is going to be homogeneity with respect to that, that goes on to transform itself into a region. So there is going to be one part associated with it, and consequently all of these regions are going to be very, very different, of course. Now, since there is going to be only one criteria on basis of which the whole of the region goes on to be homogeneous, we're going to say that is the boundaries that go on to demarcate it and determine it. These are the boundaries. This is the boundary that goes on to determine and demarcate it. It is this boundary we are talking about. It is this boundary that will go on to unfold the three-dimensional part of a space. That means, supposing that we go on to be picking up a map, we're going to pick up a country. This is going to be the shape of the country. That means this country boundaries will go on to sink in mantle, and at the same time it will go on to move out into the atmosphere as well. That is how exactly it will go on to likely to move out in this place also. This is where it will go on to move out. That is how this boundary will go on to look like. Supposing this is a place, that means below as well and above as well. It goes on to unfold the three-dimensional segment of the space. That is going to be one of these concepts. Second is that the region goes on to, sometimes it can go on to be amalgamation of many things. For example, take the case of some of these regions which are known for civil services preparation, Rajendra Nagar. As an example, one of these better known regions, there can be some regions in Bengaluru as well, and there will be some of these type of regions in Hyderabad as well, Ashok Road crossing, for example. And then you have civil lines in Allahabad also. That is going to be, these are going to be the type of regions all in all. And when we are going to be having this type of a region, what we are going to be concerned with in this case is, that is, with this type of a region, that every region, you cannot go on to find a place like that of Rajendra Nagar in the whole of the world. It is simply impossible. Same buildings, same type of roads, same type of climate, same type of metro line, the same type of configuration, you are not going to find it anywhere. So from that angle, India is a region that is going to be very large, and of course Rajendra Nagar is a region that is small and that is unique and that is very exceptional. Like two faces can never be the same. Like two faces can never be the same, except in Indian cinemas. Similarly, there cannot be two regions that can go on to be the same. That is also not possible. So that's why region is always going to be set up to be unique. So it's unique, it's 3D segment, and since it is going to be about a space, it is going to be occupying a segment of the space. That's why it is going to be geographical, because a region cannot go to exist in the sky. A region cannot go to exist in a vacuum. It goes on to exist only in a space. That's the reason that it goes on to be geographical. Any criteria you take, you want to take a criteria of language distribution. You're going to take a criteria of religious distribution. You're going to take a criteria of a growth distribution. Any one of them. So high growth region, low growth region. The word is region. That means all the regions that will go to experience high growth will be a high growth region, and low growth as a low growth region. That is how the whole of this region will exist, and that will go on to be as well. So that goes on to mean that is going to be geographical. Now, a region, as we said, that region is an intellectual concept. Consequently, it goes on to exist in our mind. And if it goes on to exist in our mind, then that means that has a behavioral component as well for us. As I repeat it, it has a behavioral component for us as well. And when we go on to say that it has a behavioral component, it means that what we think, and we can go to make it a region. We can go to say, we can go to pick up a criteria like that is a region where all the people will go on to think in a cosmopolitan manner. Now, if it is that, we can go on to find certain degree of homogeneity with respect to that criteria, that will going to become a region. So that is how exactly the region can go on to be defined in this case also. So it has an inbuilt and inherent behavioral component, a psychological component associated with it. That is why we're going to be talking about perceptual. Region depends on our perception. And of course, every region is going to be exceptional. Exceptional in the sense that it is only in geography that is going to be studied. And geographers go on to call region as a chorology. Now understand, they're going to be calling it by the name of chorology. And what do they say? They say that any phenomena can be studied in two ways. The first is it can go on to be studied in a historical manner. That means when we are going to study a phenomena historically, it is going to be called as chronological approach. That is, the approach in this case is going to be not chronological, it can go on to be called as chronological. A chronological approach is what history is. So there are two ways in which the phenomena can be studied. If it is going to be studied from the perspective of a timeline, that is going to be chronological. If it is going to be studied from a perspective of a space, that is going to be called as chorological. Geography is a chorological science. Geography is a chorological science, and that's what we're going to call it. That's how we're going to talk of it also. So it is, and that's why it is going to be said to be exceptional. There is no subject that goes on to study the region. It's only geography that studies regions, and consequently it is unique and it is going to be exceptional. That is going to be the concept of the region. So the concept of a region goes on to comprise these segments. That is one part of the topic. The second is, of course, extending this concept. There are going to be some aspects like that of these aspects that we're going to be talking about, attributes of a regional study. So one of them is going to be criteria. Now, one of these attributes of region is criteria. Unless we're going to choose a criteria, there can never be a region at all. It's simply not possible that a region can exist without a criteria. The moment we're going to take a criteria, the region will going to change. The spatial connotation of the place will going to change. If you're going to take a criteria of language, the region will be different. If you're going to take it religion, it will be different. Economic growth, different. Maybe we can go to pick up a criteria of having a similar type of land form. Maybe mountainous. So mountain is a region. Plateau is a region. Plain is a region. Now, but plain and mountains, both of them will go to converge when you're going to talk about Hindi, because people speaking Hindi will be found in mountains as well as in the plains. That is going to be its criteria. Categories is going to be all about whether it is region is formal, whether region is nodal, and so on. But categories is going to be talked about in the concept of types of region. Types of region that is going to be talked about separately. That third is the characteristic of region. One of its characteristic is going to be, of course, homogeneity. Homogeneity with respect to anything, any type of a concept that we imbibe, and if that is going to be homogeneous, that is one of the characteristic of region. If it is not homogeneous, it can never be a region. But homogeneity depends on the criteria, whatever criteria that we're going to choose, that we're going to pick up, and on the basis of that criteria, there is homogeneity, then that going to constitute a region. Then there is a similarity, that means repetition of it, repetition of the phenomena or repetition of certain things that take place. That means there may be similar type of regions. That means linguistic region 1, linguistic region 2. One can be Hindi speaking, another can go on to be Tamil speaking, Telugu speaking, and so on. That is going to be the similarity associated with it. We have said that it is going to be unique and it's going to be distinct. Unique because There cannot be a replica of that region anywhere in the whole of the world. That is simply not possible. There can't be, because that region has evolved out of, as we're going to say, that is the present is a product of many factors combined together. For example, just to take an example, if we can go to pick up one of these regions in India, that is small region, that is Rajendra Nagar region. So previously Rajendra Nagar region used to be completely covered under Aravalis. It was thickly forested. Near to Rajendra Nagar there was a lake. Now this lake existed up till 1911. After that, the whole of the lake started getting acquired by the British, who shifted their capital from 1905 to 1911 to this place here, and they started acquiring this lake. As they started acquiring this lake, they started filling it also. Now, as that lake got filled up, then after some time, it was found that there were certain places where some hospitals were installed. That was one of them was Gangaram Hospital. Now, then thereafter, in 1947-48, there was a lot of refugee influx in the region, and all of these refugees were found to be best settled in some places like that of Rajendra Nagar. So it started becoming a refugee type of a settlement. Now, then after something like 1990 onwards, mostly, and particularly after 2000, the center, the whole of this area, started becoming a hub of civil services, because the first institute for civil services was in this place. The second was also in the same place. And these institutes do not going to exist. The third was also in this place, and then the fourth that still exists in the form of one of these largest institutes in the region and for it. So it was going to be P.T. Sachdeva College, then it was going to be another institute, then it was going to be Rouse, and then it going to be there was another of this part, an academy, and then we have Vajiram and so on and so forth. So that we're going to say that is, it has evolved in such a manner. Now the form is completely different, and with the metro coming to this place, this complexion is completely changed. So the present is a product of many of these processes taking place in such a manner. Consequently, it is unique, it is distinct, right? It is unique and distinct because such type of processes may not have taken place anywhere in the whole of the world. And that's what we're going to say. It is part of the earth, and it is going to be a 3D segment of the earth. That is something that we have talked about. Part of the earth because it exists on the earth. So Iceland is going to be one region, and accordingly it can go on to be even Greenland can go on to be region. Now both of these regions will go on to change and exchange their names, because Iceland in summer goes on to look green, and Greenland in summer goes on to look icy. It should be completely opposite. Greenland should be called as green because it has green stone, it is green in color that way, and that is how it has been called. But if you're going to take a look at it, it goes on to be completely different that way. Now more important is that regions have a hierarchy. By hierarchy we mean, that is, take an example, that is continents are one region. Then country is going to be another region. Maybe you can go to pick up a state, that is going to be another region. Within the state, a district is going to be another political region. That's one part. If you're going to pick up certain water bodies, then oceans are going to be one region. Now within the oceans, there are going to be water bodies, which can be lake, that is going to be another region. Within water bodies, there can go on to be ponds, that can go on to be another region. And then the second part of it will be water bodies can go on to be rivers, can be one. Smaller than that will be streams. Even smaller than that can go on to be rivulets. And that goes on to be another region. The whole of this rivulet can go on to be another region because it will go on to have a similar type of a characteristic here. So it can go on to be, for example, we're going to pick up a case of a desert. So one of the deserts can go on to be one region because all of these deserts going to be having one characteristic. Now, in terms of hierarchy, these deserts will going to become different. One of them is a hot desert, another is going to be a cold desert. Now, in the hot desert, it can go on to be Sahara. Within Sahara, it can go on to be Libyan desert. Within Sahara, there can go on to be Tanzaruf desert. And so on. Within Sahara, it can go on to be Chad as well. Now, they're going to become regions. That is also a region. That is going to be also a region. That is also going to be a region. So that goes on to show a hierarchy. The last part is that the region is going to be having a boundary. Now, these boundaries can never ever be sharp. It can never ever be sharp. If they're going to consider that this is going to be a boundary, then this boundary can never be sharp. This is largely because it's always going to be transitional in nature. Always transitional. Neither linguistic boundary, nor physiographic boundaries, nor climatic boundaries, nor vegetation boundaries, none of them can go on to be sharp. There is always going to be some degree of a transition. Take an example of savanna, savanna vegetation. The savanna vegetation will go on to comprise of a tree savanna, shrub savanna. It can go on to be tree savanna, shrub savanna, then it can go on to be some other type of a savanna, that is going to be grass savanna and so on, and then desert savanna. That is what is going to be called by the name of transitional nature of the region. So we go on to be talking in this stage, that is how it can go on to be. The boundaries are going to be essentially transitional in nature. Boundaries don't going to exist in the form of a sharp line at all. And it is one of these regions that is going to be present as a product. That is it is one of these regions that is always going to be changing. Pick up any region in the whole of the world and you're going to find that this region has not remained static. A region is always a dynamic concept. Neither the Himalayas have remained static, nor Delhi has remained static, nor Iceland has remained static, nor Patagonia has remained static, neither even Antarctic has not remained static. There is always going to be changing. So, regions going to be having a broad characteristic. The last of this attribute is a compage. Now, compage is a ability to see the whole thing, whole. That is, we are going to be talking about a whole. That is going to be compage. And the term has been used by one gentleman called as a Whittlesey. He was the one who went on to use this word. And basically that goes on to mean whole. Whole, this means composite. Whenever you go on to see anything, it's a perceptual notion. Whenever you go on to see anything, you do not go on to see these things in isolation at all. For example, when you go on to see someone, you do not go on to see its nose separately, its mouth separately, its eyes separately. Not that you're going to think nose in, imagine it, two holes in the nose, eyes bulbous, and then lips everted. Not of that sort at all. You always go on to build this notion of having it a composite form, complete form of it. And that is what we go on to be calling it as a, that is the way that we go on to be calling it as a. That means this is a whole, compage. It is this compage that gives us an idea about the region. Whenever we're going to think of a region, let's say we're going to think of Iceland, there is one image. That's one image. That is the whole of Iceland that we're going to take it, not exactly only volcanic eruption of Iceland. Iceland means volcanic eruption. Iceland means ice, covered by ice. Iceland means very fast winds. The composite of it, an agglomeration of everything, is what goes on to make it compage. That goes on to make it discuss all these attributes. And that is what a region is. That is the concept of region and its attributes, including its characteristics. Characteristics is going to be one topic that is given to you separately as a part of your syllabus.